Good evening, everyone. We'll get started in about 8 minutes.
Hey, now the meeting's coming up. Hey. You want your drink? Yes.
Good evening, Patrick.
Evening, Stacy. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thanks. And yourself?
No, I'm doing all right.
Good to see you again.
Great. Always great to see you.
Thank you.
How's the weather in Florida today?
Oh, beautiful day. Beautiful day. Bright, sunny, 80. Excellent. Had a good stretch lately.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be in the high 80s this weekend in the valley, so it'll be a interesting change from the low 50s and even colder. Been a
You're
long-
ready for it. Sound like you're ready for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready for the rain to be over.
Yeah. We're looking for some here. We're way down, about 8 inches.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, a good hurricane will fix that real fast.
Oh, no such thing as a good hurricane.
And that's why I don't live in Florida.
Yeah. Taking a chance.
All right, we'll get started in about 3 minutes.
Great.
Hi.
Hi, Lorena.
I'm not listen. You listen to me?
We can
Huh?
we can hear you.
Oh, you listen to me? Okay, cool. I'm here.
All
I
right,
was
great.
in the parking lot.
All right.
LA.
Glad you could make it.
Okay.
Nice. We got someone from Texas here and Florida. And who else is here from not California or not Los Angeles? Massachusetts. Wow. Thank you for coming. Utah.
And this surprises you why, Patrick?
I'm not being surprised. I'm just happy to see the reach we have.
Indeed.
Hi, team.
Hey there.
Hi.
Put a shirt on, Sid.
I'm technically on vacation. I am not even technically here at the moment.
You're technically here because we can see you.
Yay.
Physically here, technically here, not here.
I might be a hologram.
Mhm.
How was Hawaii?
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. I'm kind of, it's like tomorrow it'll be Santa Barbara.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So you all can have fun with new CE 59.
I was going to say, I'll be at 59 helping Carl. So.
You know what? I got to tell you, I looked at it today and I was going to try to get some of the guys from 59. I looked at it and I said, you know what? I got to leave that for everybody else. It was mine.
Well, I saw CE 13. I want that. I want that in Central Bureau. When are we getting that?
You talk to the man who wears the badge on that one.
I mean, 13 is in Central Bureau, labeled.
Again, talk to
Oh.
the man who wears the badge.
So what kind of rig do we get?
You got the Dodge ambulance.
Oh, okay.
I just put pictures up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody and leave everybody muted. We'll go ahead and take questions at the end. So if you do have questions, please go ahead and hold your questions, write them down so you don't forget them. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I do want to apologize in advance. I did not get a chance to finish the slide deck. As I was writing this out, I ran through the presentation in my head, and when I actually sat down to write the slides, I found it to be a lot more difficult to do this presentation, put it on digital paper, as it were, than I thought it was going to be. So you'll see some slides are blank. I'm going to go on tangents a few times here and there, but this presentation is going to be one of our advanced presentations. It's going to be different than how we typically do. This is going to have a lot of philosophy behind it. I could tell you, the basics. I could tell you, use complex passwords. Don't share your passwords with people. Don't use the same password for the same website. Use multi-factor authentication. That's been published all over the place. what I really want to do is talk about why we're vulnerable to cyber security threats, to physical security threats. I want to really go into the philosophy and hopefully get you to recognize the vulnerabilities we place in our own lives and why we're vulnerable to these things, so that you can hopefully change the behaviors and understand the risks and then mitigate them. My name is Patrick Botts Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator. And today we're talking about cyber and physical security, why we are unsecure. Purpose, as I mentioned, is really to explore the risks and vulnerabilities we have in our daily lives. We're full of these risks, and pretty much anything we do comes with some sort of risk. There's very few things in this world that have zero or even marginal risk. But we assess them and either ignore the threats that a risk could give us, an action that we take, the risk that it poses, or we mitigate them and then move on with their lives. And really the origin of this presentation was a friend of mine who's very intelligent, very experienced, got caught and tricked. And it's really, anybody can do this. The cyber criminals out there are not just preying on dumb people, stupid people, ignorant people. They're preying on intelligent people. And actually, the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to fall for something. Not just because you might think you're too smart to get caught, but also because the way these cyber criminals are crafting their attacks, they're designing it to really exploit the weaknesses in our own lives. And no one is immune to these weaknesses. So that's why we need to be aware of them and figure out how can we mitigate the damage, mitigate and reduce the chances of getting caught, but also understand that if you do get tricked, you're not alone. You're not stupid for getting tricked. You are simply one of the people that you just were having a bad day and you fell for it this time. One of the things I want to talk about is, as we get into things here, this is not going to be political. I'm going to talk about how we're represented information. And unfortunately, the way the world is right now, everything is very political. So I'm going to try and keep this very non-political, keep it very matter of fact and straightforward. And I ask that you do the same when you have any questions, and please keep the chat clean as well. So there's a lot of assumptions that we're going to be making in this presentation. Number one is, this was actually a senior lead officer, LAPD senior lead officer, who told me this, and I find it to be very good assumption. 10% of any group does not belong, be it in your own community, in your own family, in your job, employment, in any population. 10% of that group should not be there. And that could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're not competent, and somehow they got through the interview process. They tricked the hiring manager and everybody who interviewed them. And then when you actually work with them, you find out that you're having to cover for them because they're not competent. Or it could be that they have issues going on in their own lives, and that is starting to weigh on other people. Or it could be they're criminals, and they're there for nefarious reasons. So it's a broad assumption, and it's not a statement or criticism of or judgment of them, but in general, 10% of any population, of any group, does not belong there. Second, and I work in IT, and I see this a lot. Most people are lazy or complacent. And this leads to vulnerabilities when you're not paying attention, or you're making bad assumptions, or you're not really checking to make sure that information is correct that you've been given, this is how you get compromised. Most people are incompetent, and that's a sad reality of things. And it's not that you're incompetent in everything you do, but it's that no one can really be 100% competent at every single thing they do. It's a sheer impossibility. And so you're going to do stuff that you are not good at. You're going to do things that you are not capable of doing. And hopefully you're going to learn from these mistakes and you're going to become more competent at it. That is how we grow, is by doing things, making mistakes and learning from them, and then trying again and getting them right, or at least not making the same mistakes twice. But as a general rule of thumb, most people are not competent. They might be great at something, and that's not to say that they're a problem, but when people give you information, you have to look at the source and find out, is this someone I trust that knows what they're talking about, or is this a mistake that they're trying to share with me and bring me down with it? And again, that's not to say that they have a nefarious reason to do this. Continuing on with that, most people won't validate or confirm information given to them. And we see this over and over again on social media. Someone says something and people share it without checking, without confirming that the source is valid, that the information is accurate. I'm not going to say facts check because that has a negative connotation in some groups, but that you don't verify the information and you go ahead and share it, and then you become part of the problem. And again, this leads to vulnerabilities. If you get an email from your boss saying, hey, I need you to do this, and you don't confirm that this information really came from your boss, hey, I need you to wire $100,000 from the corporate account to this random account in the Cayman Islands. Oh, it came from my boss, so it must be valid, right? Well, you didn't verify that, and this is not an uncommon problem. Many companies have fallen victim to this. And that's because most people aren't paying attention. And quite frankly, we're so distracted in our daily lives that it's hard to pay attention 100% of the time. And you do become lazy, complacent, or tired, or overwhelmed, and you get tricked because you weren't paying attention. Now, here's one of the interesting ones, is that most people want someone to blame their problems on. Unfortunately, it's very common to not take responsibility for your own actions, and anything that is out of your control, or maybe you made a mistake, sometimes it's easier to blame someone else. And it's easier in that you don't want to get fired for making a mistake. And the reality is that a lot of times people want to place blame on someone else and hold scapegoats. And so it's very scary out there when you realize, if I do something and mess up, I could get fired for it. And that's not a good way to run a business, because if you go back to number 3, you're going to make mistakes. Not everyone is perfect. And if you're so scared of making a mistake because you're going to get fired, then of course you're going to try and blame someone else for a problem that you created. And it's something that this world has embraced, unfortunately, and we see it over and over again. And it's because as an extension of that, people want to blame other people for problems outside of their control. So instead of saying, how do we fix this? It's, who do we blame for this? Who do we hold guilty? Who do we fire because something didn't go as planned? The reality is that most problems are complex, and complex complex problems require complex solutions. Well, complex solutions are not easy. They're not simple. They're not fast. They're not, we do this and the problem is solved. It's, we have to do this, 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 this. And if this worked, then we have to do this and this and this. And then maybe we can solve the problem. And in our society where everything is fast paced and everyone has short attention spans, that becomes very much of a problem, especially in the political landscape, where you have you ask government to fix a complex problem, and you have politicians they have a four-year term and a 2-year term limit. And the solution may take 20 years of planning, development, and growth to come up with a complex solution for a complex problem, but you have a politician who's only going to be there for 8 years. Well, that's not going to get them reelected. A 20-year solution is not going to give them the headlines they want to advance their career. And so we really do look at what is the quickest way we can come up with some sort of possible solution that may not work, but it's going to make us look good. And this is where we go back to, well, that didn't work, so I need to blame someone else for the problem. One thing I always assume is I don't assume people are trying to do me harm out of malice. If something goes wrong, it's more likely that it's due to laziness or incompetence or short-sightedness than anything else. I think 90% of the population is here for a good reason or trying to do their jobs. And when something goes wrong, if I try and find someone who's trying to hurt me, I'm looking at the problem in the wrong way. Number 9, working in IT, technology isn't perfect. We realize that, hey, you know, I bought this product and it should work. Well, it didn't work or it broke. What am I going to do? What does the company do? How are we going to fix this problem instead of blaming someone for technology failing on us? When I first did the live stream to YouTube, it said it couldn't connect. Well, I started it 10 minutes before the presentation just in case there was a problem, because that gave me 10 minutes to fix the problem. And when I tried it again, it worked. Well, if I started the live stream right when I started the presentation and ran into this problem, I'd be scrambling now to try and fix it before I could even start the presentation. Always understand that if anything's going to break, it's going to break, and you need to give yourself a little bit of window, make sure that your products work, make sure you test everything. And sometimes still it's going to work. It's going to test fine, but it's going to break when you actually try and use it. This one, I think, is both a fair and a not fair statement. Corporations will always choose profit over safety and security, especially publicly traded companies. And the reason for that is you have to understand that the board of directors and the CEO have one job, and that is to maximize the shareholder profit. And when you have a publicly traded company, a company that looks at the more expensive long-term solution, it makes an investment, reduces the short-term profitability of that company for long-term profit. And some companies are really good at investing wisely and making sure that they're thinking for the long term. Other companies are not so good at that, especially when your stock price is down and your shareholders are upset about you and you rely on your shareholders to have a job. You may make decisions to maximize short-term profit at the cost of safety, security, or possibly even jobs of your employees. And we see this over and over again. Every time there's some sort of hiccup in the market or predictions are not great, we see a massive round of layoffs. And that's short-sighted thinking, because if I need my employees to grow my company, but they're the most expensive expense for me, and I get rid of them, I minimize the long-term investment in growing the company for saving money right now. And I don't know, but the IT industry has taken a massive hit over the last 6 months of layoffs from Microsoft, Google, Apple. Everyone's laying people off left and right. And that's because short-term thinking. But then again, I'm also not, the CEO of a company, publicly traded company. So I might have a different opinion if my job was on the line. Cybersecurity, this is from Merriam-Webster, is defined as measures taken to protect a computer or computer system as on the internet against unauthorized or access or attack. I'm sure that means everything you need to know about cybersecurity, and that by just me reading you this definition, you're now experts at cybersecurity, or this definition literally said nothing relevant. Physical security is defined as the protection of personnel, property, and physical assets from physical actions and events that could cause damage or loss. Again, you're now experts at physical security, right? Or I just read to you a definition that means absolutely nothing. When we talk about security and why it's important, we have to realize that our possessions identify us. And as you get older, you realize that your possessions represent a lifetime of growth, accumulation, memories, memories of your family, memories of events that were monumental in your life. And these possessions, while it may sound materialistic, they're important to us. And making sure that someone doesn't take our stuff is rather important. This is why we have locks on our doors, because if someone walks in and the door is unlocked and they can just walk in and take whatever they like, it hurts us, not just financially, but they're taking our memories, taking our meaningful items that represent us. And to do what? Who knows? They could sell it. They could go, this is garbage. It means, it was a gift from a relative who, passed away, and they see it as garbage and they throw it away, or they smash it and it's junk to them. But to you, it was the last thing you got from this person. And our personally identifiable information or data is as much physical possession as a digital one. And what I mean by this is that our data is, while it's in the cloud, is also on our devices. And we need to protect that as much as we protect our homes and our property. We have to secure it. We have to lock it, because people who steal our data, they'll do something with it. They'll sell it. They'll use it to commit crimes. And it's our identity in that when it comes back to, well, who committed this crime? Well, it was a stolen identity. It was Bob Smith, and Bob Smith is now on the hook for this damage. And everything that the criminal did was under Bob Smith's name, and now Bob Smith has to answer for this. Well, Bob Smith didn't do a good job of securing his data and it got stolen, or trusted the wrong website with it and it got stolen, or clicked on the wrong link and it got stolen. And now Bob Smith has to spend a huge amount of time fixing and correcting and cleaning up the damage done by this criminal, who, for all intents and purposes, was Bob Smith. It always costs more to repair, replace, or fix something than you think it will. if you think, oh, I don't have anything of value, I'm poor, my credit's shot, they can take whatever they want, they're not going to be happy with it, that means it's never happened to you. You haven't had your identity stolen, and you don't realize that, yeah, I may not be rich and I may not have great credit. May have made mistakes in my life, but now I have to clean up criminal actions and prove that it wasn't me. And I have to go through all this effort to do this and all the cost, hiring lawyers, hiring companies to do this for me. It's not as simple as I don't have anything to lose and feel free to take it. You realize that everything is of value. And so you need to take effort to protect your data, your personal identifiable information, just as much as you protect the memories of the items and the items that are in your lives. So very rarely do I ever talk about myself, especially on these presentations. But I think it's important for you to know who I am because I'm telling you about cybersecurity, and you should trust the source that it's coming from, because I'm telling you about philosophy and making sure that you understand, why I'm saying the things I am. I have over a quarter century of cybersecurity experience. I've had hundreds of clients, and my focus with them is always on their server, network infrastructure, and IT security. I've had clients in the military, nonprofit, education, healthcare, finance. I've had multi-million-dollar corporations. I'm an award-winning IT professional, voted best IT professional several times over, published author, and I've had dozens of presentations. So again, don't like to talk about myself, but wanted to let you know who is giving you this information. We talk about vulnerability versus risk, and I didn't like the definitions I found online. So when I define a vulnerability, I describe it as an actively exploitable weakness. If you have something that's vulnerable, say it's a piece of software that has a known vulnerability that can be exploited, and you continue using the software without patching it, you run the risk of getting broken into, having your data exploited, or whatever they're going to be able to do. And sometimes it's as simple as the attacker just needs an entry point into your computer. And this vulnerable piece of software is that entry point. I talk about risk. We talk about activities and actions that in and of themselves or grouped together can expose a vulnerability. So I mentioned earlier that just everyday lives, we expose ourselves to multiple risks. Just going outside is risky. You're walking on the street, you could get hit by a car. Well, we want to mitigate those risks, and that's actions we take to reduce that risk so that it's acceptable. When I'm walking on the street, I'm walking on the sidewalk. Theoretically, cars should stay in the street. And when I cross the street and have to enter where the cars are, I'm going to look both ways, make sure that there's no oncoming traffic, and then make my way quickly across the street. I'm not going to leisurely stroll around and hope that I don't get hit by a speeding car. Does it reduce the risk to zero? No. There are many times where a drunk driver will go onto the curb and take out a pedestrian, but it mitigates the risk. Versus I'm walking in the middle of the street, my back to oncoming traffic, and I'm not paying attention. I've got headphones on. That's a much riskier chance of me getting hit by a car that was not paying attention. Could be a drunk driver, or just someone who's not paying attention, or they're coming around a blind curve and I'm there. So what we do as actions to mitigate the risks that we take in our daily lives reduces but does not eliminate that risk. The more risks we take, the more chances we're going to do something that has an active vulnerability in it. And that vulnerability is what an attacker or criminal will exploit and use against us. Now, I talk about our lives being vulnerable by design, and this is technology in general. You have to realize that most technology is actually built on old technology. Windows 11 is built on Windows 10, which is built on Windows 7, which is built on Windows Vista, which is built on Windows XP, and going all the way back to DOS. If you look through your operating system, you're going to find references to MS-DOS and copyright dates of 1980s. And this software is there, and this software was built in a time where we didn't have the internet. We didn't have organizations actively trying to exploit software. And it was a time when people didn't think, oh, I need to encrypt this data. I need to make sure that it's secure. I need to make sure that it's well written. Built on, built on, built on, to the point where an exploit is, attackers regularly discover exploits that have been in existence for 30 plus years that no one has discovered yet. And this happens constantly. Yes, new technology might be built from the ground up and might just not be as secure as it should be, or it's built on technology that you're not even developing yourself. You're using someone else's product in your technology, and that product is what has a vulnerability and can now be exploited. And now you have to fix it or find a way to mitigate it because the company that created this technology doesn't exist anymore, and someone isn't actively updating it and fixing these problems. So we really are vulnerable by design. And unfortunately, the reality is this is never going to go away. There's never going to be an instance where someone is going to write perfect code that has no vulnerabilities. Most software has some sort of vulnerability in it. It just hasn't been discovered yet. The saying was that the only way to truly make sure that your computer never gets hacked is to unplug it and throw it in the closet. The understanding is really that any piece of software out there, anything connected to the internet, anything that anybody can access, has some sort of vulnerability and can be exploited. But that's not to say that we need to be paranoid about things. A lot of times these exploits are very difficult. These vulnerabilities are very difficult to exploit, and it takes a concerted amount of effort to make something happen. There's been exploits that are discovered where someone needs to literally plug into the motherboard and access the CPU directly to inject code into the CPU. Well, you're connected to the internet. Someone doesn't have physical access to your CPU. So the chances of that vulnerability being exploited are so low that I wouldn't freak out about it. However, we talk about physical security as part of cybersecurity. My server room is locked up. To get access to my server room, you have to get access to the building. You have to get access to the inner doors of the building. You have access to the server room. You have to bypass all the security cameras and the security company that is patrolling our facility. And then you need to take our servers offline to, without us noticing, to gain access to that hardware and to exploit it. It's simply not worth it for anybody to go through that amount of effort to try and exploit and do something to us. But it is a reality that these vulnerabilities do exist. And some of these won't be fixable. Sometimes, and there's been some pretty big ones where it was just such the sheer amount of rework that was required to fix these vulnerabilities, it wasn't feasible. But because the risk was so low that it was mitigated by that it was just so difficult for someone to exploit it. One of the biggest problems we have when we talk about the chances of a crime happening is population density. I mentioned before that a senior lead officer told me that 10% of any group does not belong. And if you think about that, that's 1 in 10 people. If you're in a group of 10, someone probably doesn't belong there. It doesn't mean they're a criminal. It just means that they're maybe not going to mesh with the group 100%. But as you start to get larger populations, that number goes up. 10 out of 100 people, 100 out of 1,000 people. City of Los Angeles, 4 million people, 400,000 people don't belong. Population of California, 40 million people. That means 4 million people don't belong. Could be criminals, could be people who just don't like the weather, could be people who are not making enough money to survive here. But 4 million out of 40 million. You talk about the population of the United States, 334 million people. That means 34 million people don't belong here. The population of the world is 8 billion. 800 million people don't belong here. You can see how quickly that ramps up. And if even 1/10 or 1/100th of 1/10 are criminals, that's a lot of criminals in a city the size of Los Angeles. That's a lot of criminals in the state of California, a lot of criminals in the United States. You know, 60 years ago, cities were a lot smaller. Towns, it was acceptable that, you know, in your town of, 4,000 people, you left your door unlocked because chances of a criminal really low. But no one would think in the city of Los Angeles with 4 million people here that you're going to leave your door unlocked. And there are literally people walking around trying car doors to see if they're open. And if they get lucky and open the door, hey, I'm going to rummage through your stuff. And hey, you left something here, I'm going to take it. Or they're walking along and they're looking in windows. They say, hey, somebody left a bag there. Looks like a laptop bag. I'm going to break the window and take that laptop bag. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe it's a laptop. Maybe I won't get lucky. And, hey, what are the chances of me getting caught? Pretty low. There's not police everywhere. With the pandemic, people are wearing masks. That's not uncommon. So if a security camera catches me, I'm wearing a mask and I just broke into a window, what are the chances of them identifying me? Well, what if I do get caught? Did I hurt somebody? No. Did I steal something that was over a certain threshold? It becomes a felony? No. So what are they going to do? Probably just slap me on the wrist and let me go. We heard about the burglar who was sneaking in through and crawling through restaurants and businesses. And he admitted that he committed dozens of felonies. I think it was like 64 felonies he copped to. And he was in jail for less than 100 days, and probably even less than 30 days. So with population density, the chances of a criminal breaking into your home, your car, costing you on the street, mugging you, goes up significantly. That's not to say that we should be panicked and paranoid and freaking out that we're going to get jumped by any passerby, but we need to be aware of this. We need, like I said, going outside is a risk. We mitigate the risk by paying attention to what's going on around us, not drawing attention to our expensive belongings, not leaving things out, making sure we lock our doors, making sure that we hide our valuables so that we don't attract the attention of someone who wants to take it from us, who thinks, well, if I take it from them and I don't kill them, if I get caught, no big deal. I'll be out in less than a week, or I'll be out by the end of the night. People who break into cars all the time, they get busted all the time, and they're out by the next morning committing crimes again. So the same applies when we talk about cybersecurity. And you have to realize that everything is online. You don't need a passerby to physically be there to see you and access you. Your data's out there. You're on websites, you're on your phone, you're on social media. They can be in a different country. They can be in Russia. They could be in South Africa. They could be in North Korea. They could be in Ohio. They could be just down the street from you. And suddenly now it's not, 40 million people in the state of California or 4 million people in the city of Los Angeles. It's 8 billion people, 80 million of which, I'm sorry, I can't do math apparently. 800 million people don't belong. If even 1/10 of that were criminals, or 100th of that number were criminals, that's a lot of criminals out there looking to exploit, looking to steal, looking to cause me harm, not because they're trying to do it out of malice, but because they got nothing better to do. And if you look at the information that we put out there, a single website might actually contain everything they need to steal your identity: your social security number, your birth date, your bank account number, your home address, previous addresses, phone number. A lot of this information, personally identifiable information, can be used to steal your identity or reset your passwords or whatever else that they need to do to gain access to that website and gain access to your data. Even your work addresses. I don't know if you've run your credit before, but sometimes they ask you, which of these addresses have you lived at? Which of these addresses have you worked at? And it could be a previous employment. And that information, if it's out there and you share it, can be exploited. Or, say you're on Facebook and you're in the Bahamas for vacation and you're sharing photos online of your vacation. Well, guess where you're not? Guess what? One of your friends who isn't really your friend now knows about you. Well, if they know where you live, pretty good chance that you're not going to come home in the middle of the night and surprise them while they're breaking into your place. We have to ask where our data is. And it's more than just online. And when we talk about computers 20 years ago, you have a desktop and it's plugged into the internet somehow. It's more than that now. Your laptop, your tablet, your smartphone. Your smartphone probably has more information on it, access to more data, access to more bank accounts. And if your smart home is online, it could unlock your doors. It can open your garage. It can turn your lights on and off. It can disarm your security system. And smartphones go missing all the time. We're not very careful about it. A lot of people are, and I've seen people get up and leave their phone when they go to the restroom. And it's like, what are the chances of password on that phone? Not everybody locks their phone. Now, some systems will require you to put in a code, but I'm guessing of the 104 people that are online tonight on this session, at least a third of you probably don't have passwords on your phone. Well, what's on your phone that can be used against you? So it's very important that not only do we lock our phones, but that we keep them with us at all times. Don't leave them on the table. Don't leave them in a bag that you leave when you go to the restroom. Always keep that on you because, well, our wallets tend to have very valuable information: driver's license, credit cards. I would actually freak out more about losing my phone than I would about losing my wallet. And then how many people actually have those nifty cases that their cell phone case is their wallet too? Could you imagine losing that? You lose your cell phone and your wallet and there's no security on your phone. Now they've got everything about you. And well, with my credit cards, I can cancel them. With my ID, I can get new ones. But I use my phone for multi-form factor authentication. That's a lot more difficult to change now without it, because that's how you validate who you are, and now a criminal has it. And you can see how much of a problem this becomes. But it's also things like your car's GPS. Your car tracks where you go. If you search for locations, it knows where you've been. You put your home and work address in there. You valet park. Well, that valet has full access to your car GPS now. Your car gets stolen. That criminal who stole your car has full access to your GPS. They know where you've been. They know where you live. They know where you work. Most people work during the day. So where are they not going to be? At home. And if they can see a history of your locations, they know your patterns. And they can figure out where and when you're not going to be there. But now we talk about what's online. Stores, Amazon, it knows my address. It has my credit card on file. Somebody breaks into that or gets my phone, which has that information on it because I'm logged into Amazon, that becomes a major vulnerability for me. Services. Actually, I was talking to someone, they pointed out that there was a website called InfoGuard that was for security, government security professionals to keep track of and get announcements on events in the world that they need to pay attention to. Well, that website collected information and there was a breach, and all the membership roll of that site was compromised. And guess who these people were? People with security clearances, people in government agencies, people in at all levels of government and private sector, and anyone who generally pays attention to security. All of that information was grabbed. So even the security websites are the ones that are more vulnerable. Your banking website, of course. Costco, as if you have a Costco membership and you're logged in, that has a lot of information about you. So things to be aware of what you're sharing online. It's not just social media, but it's also the stores that you frequent. And how do you get to them? Well, your cell phone or your computer or something. You think, oh, I don't keep any sensitive information on my tablet. Yeah, you do. You really do. You just haven't thought about what information is on your tablet, and you left that out there, or you let your kid play with it, and your kid managed to somehow send that information to somebody. That's great. Other things you don't think about, your smart TV. Your smart TV might be logged into your Facebook account or your Instagram or something, and those get compromised all the time. And now you're sharing that information with the attackers. I mentioned that your identity matters, even if you don't think it does. And the reason for that is there's a lot of things that people can do with your information. Yeah, they can open up credit lines, credit cards. And yeah, you might have bad credit, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to open a credit card. You might have bad credit, doesn't mean you can't get a mortgage or a refi. It doesn't mean you can't open a phone line, a cell phone plan. One of the big things that has been happening is people filing false tax returns for other people and getting their tax returns, and you haven't even filed your taxes yet. Someone else did on your behalf, and now you got to explain that to the IRS. In California during the pandemic, there was a massive scandal with as California was trying to get unemployment benefits out to people. these cyber criminals were starting to take advantage of it and figuring out ways to get that unemployment money and cashing in on thousands of false unemployment claims. Well, they got your information and they used it to file unemployment. And now you got to explain that to the state of California. Vehicles, hey, vehicles are registered under someone's name. If you're a criminal and you want to do something nefarious, why don't you register it under someone else's? When the police look it up and say, oh, this is Bob Smith, and they're, they were spotted robbing a bank, Bob Smith has to answer for that. Well, Bob Smith, didn't even know that his identity was stolen and it was used to register a car. Travel tickets, if you're going somewhere and you're being traced and tracked, go as someone else. Pretty much anything that requires your name and address, and your identity can be used to steal that information. We talk about threat actors and what they are and who they are. And there's really three categories of them. You have the amateurs, you have the professionals, and you have government agencies. And amateurs really do focus on smash and grab. They're trying to just make a quick buck. They're looking for something that's not going to cost them a lot of money to do, least effort to do it. So they don't want to have to put a lot of time and energy into doing something. So they're typically going to go after one way and one way only. And they're looking for volume. If they can, break into a website and steal 30,000 username and passwords, and say even 10% of those are shared with something else, then they can try that against other stolen data and confirm it or sell that information. It doesn't even have to be accurate. The sheer number is valuable because they're maybe making 1 cent per stolen identity, but if they steal 30,000, that adds up pretty quickly. When we start talking about the professionals and the government agencies, these are radically different than the amateurs. These are, when we see malware ridden, it's actually organizations, software development companies that are writing this malware, and they're doing you've heard about getting crypto lockered. They'll write something that exploits a website or exploits your computer and then encrypts it. And then they demand a ransom. And they say, if you want your data back, pay us this ransom. Well, it didn't cost them much to develop the software to do this. It didn't cost them much to get it into your hands. But if you're 1% of the people targeted and hit by this, and you don't have any backups, you don't have any way around this, you might be willing to pay that ransom. And now they're able to make money off of you. But the great thing is some of these malicious software companies actually have great tech support and customer service. And so when you pay the ransom, sometimes they'll do everything they say they will to get your data back, or not. Or it could be that you're paying the ransom and you never get your data back. You never know. But what we are seeing is that there are actual organizations out there who are doing this professionally. It is their job, and they are criminals. Unfortunately, we're also seeing government agencies that follow very similar tactics. And fortunately, they tend to target outside of where they are. But there's a lot of nations out there that are also employing professional hackers and professional criminals who try and exploit data, and they do it to make money for their country, or they're trying to exploit and get data. And so this becomes very much a problem if you work in a sensitive industry, defense, contractor, banking, or just in general government, and you get exploited, and they find a way to convince you that you need to share your secrets with them, or they'll reveal your secrets to the world and you get fired, or worse, go to jail. So what we're seeing is that these companies, these organizations, these government agencies have extensive budgets. They will spend the time and research to, if they're targeting someone They will do their homework. They're going to follow this person. They're going to learn everything they can about this person, their online social history, websites they frequent. Maybe they'll even strike up a conversation with them online and befriend them and get close, get trusted, so they can then exploit the person, find the vulnerability in the person to get the information they want to exploit them. It's a cyber vector, but the target is the person and the information that person has. It's a physical attack coming through the internet. And these attacks could be very long term. They could be years in the making just to exploit one person. I would assume that most of us on this call are not someone who's going to get targeted by a foreign agency, but maybe you are. So you want to think about that. Who are you talking to online, and do you really know them? Do you trust them? There is really one thing that cyber criminals, advertisers, and politicians have in common, and generally anyone actually. All of these people, cyber criminals, advertisers, politicians, they're trying to manipulate you. They're trying to convince you to change your behavior. They're trying to get you to buy something that you don't want or don't need. They're trying to get you to click on a link or sign up for something, maybe a newsletter, maybe a malicious payload that's going to download onto your computer and lock it up, and then they'll ransom you back your data. Or they're going to hijack your computer and start monitoring your emails, get access to your contact list and send emails to your contacts and let them know, hey, click on this link and check out this cool video. Politicians want you to vote one way or another. They're all going to try and convince you to advocate on their behalf. You become the salesperson. You're the person who's selling the product. You're the person who's sharing the malicious payload to someone else. You're the person who's telling your friends, hey, vote for this politician. They want to gain access to your friends, your family, your contacts, and you become that attack vector. You become the vulnerability of your social network. Now, I mentioned that generally everybody does this, and manipulation has a negative connotation, but we as humans all manipulate the world around us. Anything we do, anything we change is manipulation. We open a door, we turn on a light switch, we prepare food, we manipulate. We do it manually, we do it socially, we do it through our words. Anyone who's trying to convince someone manipulates them. And it could be you're a parent and you're telling your child to go to bed. That's manipulation. You're trying to get your child to do something. You're giving incentive. You're giving them allowance. You're giving them a dessert for doing good things. You're rewarding their behavior. That's manipulation. Your coworkers, hey, I really don't want to do this task. Hey, if you cover for me, you do this, I'll do something. Or, hey, I need to take some time off. If you cover my shift, I'll cover your shift. That's manipulation. Again, not necessarily malicious, but it is understanding how we interact with people. Every interaction we have is generally going to be some sort of manipulation. We want people to like us. We manipulate them. We want people to do something. We manipulate them. This is how we operate. A boss, of course, is going to tell you what to do. And their manipulation is, if you want to get paid, you're going to do what I tell you to do. But you also manipulate your boss. Hey, I want my boss to like me, so I'm going to come in early. I'm going to stay late at work. I'm manipulating my boss to like me better and hopefully give me a raise. Your friends, you want your friends to like you. Your spouse. I mean, it sounds really bad that you're manipulating your spouse, but hey, honey, can you go to the store? I mean, just even ask him to do something. That's literally a manipulation. You're getting them to do something, change their behavior, do something different. And again, it's not malicious, but it's understanding how we operate. So really, what this comes down to is I want you to be healthy skeptics. I want you to understand when somebody asks you to do something, what are they asking you to do? What are they really asking you to do? What is the motive behind what they're asking you to do? They say, hey, I want you to vote for so-and-so. Well, and that's pretty obvious, but it could be, hey, if you want great hair, buy this product. Okay, pretty straightforward. It starts to get really muddy and really complicated when they say, hey, can you do me a favor? Or this came up at work, actually. One of the help desk personnel asked me to do something. And hey, I need you to create this this secure folder so we can share data between them. And I didn't look at the ticket, and they asked me something very specific. It was extremely specific. The language they used was exactly the terminology of something that we would normally do. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And they gave me an answer. Well, I didn't look at the ticket. My coworker did. And he said, this ticket is asking for something completely different than what this help desk person is asking you to do. You have to understand the motivation behind someone, because I should have said, not, what are you trying to do? What are you being asked to do? So I can figure out the best way to get this done. And that's when you need to start asking questions. And you have to be careful when you watch advertisers, politicians, when you're being solicited online and someone befriends you and starts talking. What are they actually saying? What are the words they're using? Are they being vague? Are they being specific? Are they using language that you think you know what it means, but it doesn't? And we see this over and over again in dating websites. Dating websites have a very high amount of scams going on. And you think, oh, this cute girl reached out to me and she seems interested. And I spent a couple days getting to know her. It seems like a really compatible. And she's in South Korea right now, and she'll be visiting the United States in a month. And I'm going to spend that time to get to know her and then go meet her. And then she says, hey, I make a lot of money doing cryptocurrency and trading, and I can show you how to invest your money into crypto and become self-sufficient so that we can have this great life together. Well, a lot of people have fallen for that. And I'm not going to give you any kind of statistics. There probably is not any accurate statistic on this, but that kind of manipulation, you spent this time getting to know this person, and now they tell you, hey, I have this great deal for you. And people have fallen for it. Well, sometimes it becomes even more involved. And I heard about this person who went, oh, I see what's going on. Well, I've got a lot of money. On the off chance this is real, I'll invest $800. Well, the investment came back and they made a good deal of money on that $800. So, okay. Person said, I have another great investment for you. I said, okay. Invest $8,000 this time. Investment came back, made a lot of money on it. Okay, I'm starting to trust this person now. Person comes back and says, hey, I've got this great opportunity for you. You already made so much money, and this is another great one. Okay. This time this person invested $5 million. That's when the trap was sprung, and this scammer disappeared. $5 million. So understand the manipulation, understand what the motive is behind it, and understand that people are in it for the long game sometimes. They're going to use language that is going to try and trick you. They're going to emotionally target you so that you trust them, you feel like this person is on my side and that it's us versus the world. Be careful when they tell you something and they're not citing sources or they're not being specific. It's a red flag. Or they tell you facts that you can't verify. And you're building this trust with this person. And it turns out they've been lying to you this entire time. The red flags were there, but they managed to, again, these are professionals. This is what they do for a living. You're a highly intelligent person. You shouldn't fall for this. But because these people, this is all they do day in, day out, they're very good at it. And you just got suckered. So I said, I've got over a quarter century of cybersecurity experience. Well, that's pretty vague. I mean, over a quarter century, it could be true. Can you verify that? Can you actually, do you know that I really do? Is there any way you can look me up and see that I have all this experience? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. It's pretty vague though. What does cybersecurity experience really mean? I've been working on computers since I was pretty young. I would actually estimate over 30 years working on computers when I was in middle school. I've had hundreds of clients. I don't know how many clients I've had. I really don't. Probably more than dozens, but hundreds? Meh. Can you verify that? Is there any way you know that? I say I focus on security, on servers, networks, IT security. What does that actually mean to you? Doesn't mean anything. Vague. Had hundreds of clients, military, nonprofit, education, healthcare, finance, multi-million-dollar corporations. Yeah, it could be true. Does that mean anything? It makes me sound better, right? It makes you have confidence in that, these people have trusted me, theoretically. Who knows what I actually did for them? Award winning. Did I say what award I won? Voted best IT professional. By who? A published author. Yeah, maybe I put something online. That's not necessarily a lie. It's not even a lie. But did I say what I published that's relevant? Maybe I could be a poet. I publish poems. Doesn't have anything to do with IT security. That sounds like I know what I'm talking about, right? I've done dozens of presentations. Were they about IT security? Were they about anything that's relevant to this conversation? I manipulated you by being vague, by telling you all these great things about me. The reason why I don't like talking about myself is because I shouldn't have to convince you to trust me by telling you my qualifications. I've seen people whose email signature blocks are longer than their emails are because they give you all these qualifications, all these trainings they've taken, all these classes they've taken. Doesn't mean they know anything. Be wary about someone who sells themselves as more than what they really are. If they have to tell you how great they are, they probably aren't that great. It was Fear the Walking Dead. There was an episode where this bad guy is threatening someone. He says, "I'm a very dangerous person." And the person who actually has credentials, who worked for the mafia in South America, who has tortured and murdered people and is in fact very dangerous himself, goes, "I've known a lot of dangerous people before, a lot of dangerous people. And the one thing they all have in common is none of them had to tell me how dangerous they were." So when you interact with people, be careful about the people who oversell themselves. Be careful about the people who need to tell you how great they are, because they're probably trying to sell you something. They're definitely trying to manipulate you. When I interact with people, I hope that when they talk with me, when I converse with them, when I share with them information, the way I say it, the confidence I have, that tells them more about me than I could ever tell them about myself. I mentioned statistics, and be very careful about anyone who's quoting you statistics, because there's entire books on how to lie with statistics. Yes, statistics could be useful, but you have to ask yourself certain questions like, what are these statistics based on? What is the motivation of the person who made these statistics, the source? How accurate are they? You could have, you could give statistics that are based on a lot of assumptions, and turns out they're not very accurate, but they sound great. How big is the sample size? Well, out of the people who use this hair loss drug, 90% of them regrew hair. How many people use the hair loss drug in their test? 10 people. Well, maybe they all shared the same disease that caused them to lose the hair. Statistics can be used to lie all the time. One of the big things that they do is they leave out certain data. They leave out the parts that don't agree with the statistic they're trying to sell you. And they make a lot of assumptions. I mentioned the assumptions that we make, that I make at the very beginning of this presentation. Very clear about that, those assumptions. All data sets have certain assumptions that have to be made in order for that test or that study to happen. And then can you verify any of this information? If you can't verify it, then question a lot the validity of that information that you just received. When people try and manipulate you, there's a lot of red flags that you're going to hear, and you need to be immediately cognizant of it. One of the biggest ones we see on TV all the time, especially by politicians, it's a tried and true manipulation tool: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But when you try and manipulate someone, you convince them that their safety is at stake, that someone is out to get them, that their future is in danger, and that if they don't go with you, your opponent is going to ruin their lives. It's very compelling, but you should start looking into that. When you hear that kind of language, you should go, whoa, why are they telling me this? Is any of it true? You shouldn't have to scare people to get them to do something. Countries have gone to war over this. People have fought for dictators because of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I mean, arguably the most famous, the Jewish people are trying to take your money, and they're trying to ruin your lives, and they control all the industry. We need to lock them up, and then we can reclaim fear, uncertainty, doubt. You get someone to hate someone else. Doesn't matter if it's true or not, but you get them to hate someone using FUD, and they will literally kill people for you. It's a very powerful technique. Another one, advertisers do this all the time: fear of missing out, FOMO, especially when you're pressured by urgency. We have a limited time offer. This sale will never happen again. Once we're sold out, we'll never resupply. These kinds of techniques will get people to buy stuff all the time that they don't need, but they fear missing out. Well, what if I can never get this again? What if, I'm the only one who doesn't have it? This goes back to fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but extreme dichotomy. Us versus them, good versus evil. We're seeing this in politics right now. And our political system is built on, I'm forgetting the term, but basically it's two sides that may disagree with each other, but they have to work together to make things happen. And this is something that, has worked for hundreds of years. But today, if you look at the political, the way that politicians are talking, it is not, we're going to compromise, we're going to work with the other side. It's us versus them, red versus blue, Democrats versus Republicans, conservatives versus liberals. And the language they use about the other side, it's convincing you that the other side is evil and that they're out to get you. If the other side wins this election, your rights will be taken away. If the other side wins the election, you kiss all your stuff goodbye, or they're going to tax you until you can't survive. That is extremely convincing, unfortunately. But be aware of that. Be aware that they are manipulating you when you hear that language. Yeah, someone commented about the example I used for the Holocaust, and unfortunately, it is a really sad, and it's a real example, but it is, and we saw this also with the Japanese in the United States during World War II, where we don't talk about in our history very often, but we had internment camps where Japanese Americans, people who have lived here their entire lives, were arrested and taken into custody because we were at war with the country that they had ancestry from, and politicians convinced people to turn against their neighbors because of this. So we really need to look at our history. We really need to look at what people are saying. And when people tell you that the enemy is next to you, question their motivation, question their source, question what they're saying. Maybe they're right, but time and time again, they've done it for political means to gain power at the expense of others. So you need to be very much aware of that. If you hear emotionally charged language, someone really hard trying to convince you to do something, and they're twisting your arm by engaging your emotions, making you think, I need to do this because of this one reason. Or they're using dogmatic language. They're being very aggressive in their language. And it could be for or against. If you're listening to someone saying something and yes, absolutely, I 100% agree with you, chances are something's wrong, because if they're saying the things that you 100% agree on, for or against, or maybe they're saying stuff that you absolutely hate and disagree with 100%, they're trying to manipulate you, and you should question why and what are they trying to do. A lot of times we hear in the news and in political speeches terms that actually have no real definitions. They are made up terms, but they sound really dangerous, or they sound really, they sound like things that are vaguely familiar to us. I don't want to get into examples of this, but you'll hear something and yeah, that sounds like we need to do away with that. But what does that actually mean? What are they talking about? And they make up this language that actually has no meaning so that you will agree with them, and they're manipulating you to do something. And usually it's vote one way, or support a candidate who's going to do something, or buy something. One of the nasty things that happens on the news nowadays is that people buy advertising time on the news. They'll get interviewed by the news program and talk about this product. And you think, oh, it's a trusted source. I trust the news broadcast. And it's an ad. They're trying to sell you something. And the news company is making money off this. They're selling their broadcasters to sell this product to you that may actually not even be vetted by the company, and it's simply it's a dangerous product, or it's untrusted, but you think it's trusted by the news company, so you are, willing to buy it. Be very careful about this one. Universally true statements that actually don't apply to what they're talking about. They say, all knives and you say they might say it should be illegal to kill people with machine guns. Well, I think all people can agree with that. It's a universally true statement. Well, it's also true. It is illegal to kill people with machine guns. It's illegal to kill people with knives. It's illegal to kill people with hammers. It's illegal to do a lot of things. But making that statement gets you it manipulates you. You think, yes, I agree 100% with this. And now I'm going to do whatever they want me to do because they've charged me up with this statement. But it's not relevant. It has nothing to do with what they want you to actually do because it's already true. And you're not going to change one way or another. They're not convincing you of something, but they're manipulating you to get you onto their side so that you do what they want you to do. And the question is, what do they want you to do? And why? So I asked this question, someone in a CERT meeting was saying something, and he happened to be our captain. And he said something, and I thought about it for a little bit and went, yeah, that sounds great. But what does that mean? And the look on his face was priceless. He said a lot of words that didn't actually mean anything. And he was telling us something and it was getting us all charged up, but he didn't actually tell us anything that was relevant. He used a lot of language, a lot of words, and it was very vague, and he told us nothing. And the first question that should come to mind is, what does that mean? Or why is that the case? How does this actually work? Say, we're going to do this, 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 and this. How are we going to do that? It makes no sense. During the pandemic, people were afraid that the National Guard was going to declare martial law and force everybody into FEMA camps. Well, when you look at it, it's like, how are they going to do that? There's not enough of them. They can't do it to the entire nation. If all the National Guard were in one city, maybe they could declare martial law on one city, but to what end? Why are they going to do this? Where is this going to happen? Who is saying this? These are the questions you need to ask anybody who is telling you something. Dig deeper. Understand what they're saying. Understand why they're saying it. Understand, is this even possible? If you're telling me that this is going to happen, does this make any sense? Is this physically possible for anybody to do it? Do they have the numbers? Do they have the financial backing? Do they have the political willpower? Do they have the support of the people? When you start asking these questions, you start peeling away the onion and you realize, no, they're full of it. None of this is possible. And what happens a lot of times is when you start asking these questions, they get very upset and they try and intimidate you and they yell at you and they say, well, you're one of them, you're not one of us. And they try and convince you that you need to stop asking questions and just go with what they're saying. Now you know that what they're saying is pure manipulation. And if you ask somebody questions and they have answers, they're going to give them to you. Maybe they don't have time right now, it's busy, but they're not going to get mad at you for asking questions. They want you to understand the truth. And if they have the real answers, they want to share that with you. Someone who gets mad at you for asking questions is manipulating you because they don't have the answers. They can't give you the answers. You need to be very scared of that. Be very worried. But don't be an asshole. A lot of people will actually use asking questions as a way of manipulating. Well, why is this? Well, why is this? Well, who are these people that are doing this? There's certain political commentators that have shows that do this a lot, and they're very famous for it. They don't want the answer to the question. They want you to think that you're being tricked by someone else. And so, yeah, I agree. Who are these people? Well, you're not going to look it up. Most people are lazy. If someone says go Google it, are you going to Google it? Really? Or are you going to think, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. I should be, thinking about that, and then I'm too busy to go look it up. If you're doing this, if you're asking questions that you don't care to know the answer to, you're manipulating others. If you get an answer to the question, somebody answers you the question, you don't need to be a 4-year-old and keep asking why. Accept it. All right, that sounds legit. It seems to, it was a good answer. They were able to answer my questions. I don't need to keep asking questions. I got the answers I needed. Now, there's a lot of laws out there. People ask, well, isn't cyber crime illegal? Isn't it illegal to scam somebody? Isn't it illegal to break into their bank account? Isn't it illegal to murder somebody? The answer is yes, it is. Do they stop criminals? Laws are designed to punish. They dictate the punishment for a crime. So if someone is convicted of drunk driving, they take away their license. They make them pay fines. They put them in prison. Did it stop them from drunk driving? No, because that's not how laws work. Now, if the law says you're going to be summarily executed for drunk driving, you might think about that. Well, maybe it's not worth, getting dragged out of my car and shot in the head for drunk driving. But, what are the chances of me getting busted for drunk driving if I go home? I think I'm sober enough. I think I can make it. And then you hit somebody, drive, into a telephone pole or something. Don't believe that laws are going to protect you. You need to understand the reason laws exist. Somebody did something, and now there's a punishment for it. It's not going to stop other people from doing it. There's simply now a defined punishment for it. And if the punishment isn't sufficient, again, summary execution for drunk driving, people are still going to drink and drive. If the punishment for stealing someone's identity and committing wire fraud is a suspended sentence and a fine, they're going to keep doing it because the punishment wasn't enough to deter them. And if they get caught for crawling into doggy doors or through air vents and burglarizing hundreds of businesses, and the punishment is a week in jail, they're going to keep doing it because they have nothing else to do. And the punishment isn't enough to deter them from committing that crime. So understand that laws are not necessarily going to protect you. Here's one of the slides I didn't complete. So who is going to protect us from the bad guys? Well, the nice thing about living in a society where it's a big city, city of Los Angeles, for example, with 4 million people, is there are a lot of resources here. 90% of the people belong here, 10% don't. So the chances of you running into a criminal, while higher than in a location that maybe has 4,000 people, there's a lot of people around you who are going to do something about that if they see a crime happening, hopefully. There's no guarantee. Unfortunately, sometimes we see people just pull their cameras out and videotape it. But we have, 4,000 firefighters in the city of Los Angeles versus a small town which may have 4 firefighters who are volunteers. We might have, we have, I think it's like 10,000 police. versus a small town with, 3 cops. There are more resources available to us in a large city that help us as much as the number of bad guys out there that wish to do us harm also hurt us. But we really do need to take stock of what we're doing, pay attention to where we are, and we need to protect ourselves from bad guys. If we think, oh, the police are going to protect me from a crime, the crime happens, the police show up and investigate the crime and hopefully catch the bad guy after the crime has occurred. The law is there to punish the criminal after the crime has occurred. It's very difficult to say this person was going to commit a crime and therefore they need to be punished as if they did commit the crime. Or police say, oh, that person looks suspicious. We're going to arrest them for being suspicious. So you really need to self-advocate. You need to take care of yourselves. You need to pay attention to what's going on. You need to see the manipulation, understand that person doesn't look right over there. They're watching me. I'm going to watch them back. Or I need to not be here because I don't know what's going on over there, but I don't want to get caught in a bad situation. Same thing, I'm online. Something doesn't seem right about this conversation. This person randomly contacted me. They seem really friendly. They're not in the country. They're going to be back in a month. They living, they live the life that I want to live, and they're telling me that they can make me all sorts of money. Maybe this is a scam. Fear of missing out tells me, but what if it's not? What if this person is legit? What if they actually are going to make me all this money if I invest my cryptocurrency in their scheme? I'd rather not lose my money and risk not making millions of dollars on their scheme. What's more likely, that they have a scheme or a scam, or a legitimate get-rich-quick scheme? And chances are it's a scam. So when you're online, especially on social media, especially in any chat systems, Discord, Teams, whatever, don't share more information than you need to. If the information is optional, don't put it in. What benefit is that system going to get from getting your information? What benefit is the criminal who breaks into that system going to get from your information? The policy I like to adhere to is secure always, encrypt always, multi-form factor always. So if you're offered an opportunity to use a Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator or Duo or one of the other systems out there to do multi-form factor authentication, do it. Because when someone gets your password and tries to log in as you, and then they need a code, well, that deters them because they either now need to convince you to give them the code, or they need to figure out how to get your phone. So it makes it that much more difficult. Not impossible. Certainly, if someone calls you up, hey, I'm from Microsoft and your computer's been hijacked and I need you to verify your code. Microsoft isn't going to call you. Apple's not going to call you. Google's not going to call you. These companies that are out there that build the systems are not going to call you and tell you out of the blue that you have a problem. What's worse is when it pops up and says, hey, your system's we've detected these malicious files on your computer. You need to call this number. No, fake. But it's convincing. And a lot of people have been tricked by it. A lot of intelligent people have been tricked by it. There's 2 real good tactics, and that is make the scam look like a scam. So you convince people who will question it that it's a scam and they're not going to question it and waste your time, or make it look like it's not a scam. Make it look really good, and then convince people that you are legit and you're calling, and you can spoof numbers. You can make it look like you're calling from LAPD headquarters. You can make it look like you're calling from the White House. that is, it's so simple to do that you can't trust caller ID. You can't trust the number that they're calling from or texting from to be real. So just be aware, if something seems wrong, use your good judgment. Doesn't smell right. When you write a password, longer is better. Yeah, it takes you longer to type it. You have to remember it. But if you use a phrase, 3 or 4 words, then that password is going to be really strong. And it's going to be hard to guess. It's going to be hard to brute force. When someone's trying to crack passwords, they're going for the low-hanging fruit. They're trying password 1, 2, 3, password 1, 2, 3, 4, password 1, 2, 3, 5. Oh, I got in. And don't be lazy or complacent. If you let your guard down, it might not get you right away, but the more you let your guard down, the more complacent you are. Oh, I've never been, breached. It's not that big a deal. Eventually you will be, and you will find out that it is a big deal. So you have to be vigilant. You have to be paying attention. You have to go, this doesn't seem right. And it probably isn't. I want you to be healthy skeptics. I want you to assume that information that's shared with you is biased at the very least, that it's incomplete or inaccurate. Lies of admission are worse than outright lies because it sounds right. You know enough about the subject that you think it's true, but they're leaving something out, and that's what's going to get you, what's going to trick you. If someone's vague about something, they tell you something, they're not specific, question it. They tell you, hey, I'm an award-winning graphic artist. Well, who gave you the award? Hey, I'm going to hire you to be a wedding photographer. I need you to, I'm going to send you the money, and then you need to pay my facility and the rental venue out of that money. Scam. Be your own advocate. The law is going to help you after the fact. Maybe. Maybe they can't catch the person who stole your money. If they do, maybe you'll get some of it back. But you need to protect your information. You need to protect your property. You need to protect your network of friends. If you are the one who's letting random people join your network on Facebook because they're cute, pretty, they're sexy, they've got pictures that are very revealing, well, they can see your friends list. And now they can start targeting your friends. And you just became the vulnerability in your friend network, your social network. If you get text messages from random people and they say, hi, hey, I changed my number. Well, if I changed my number, I would tell somebody, hey, so-and-so, name them. It's me. I had to change my number. I would be very specific about it. But if someone is vague and they're not giving you specific information, they're not telling you who they are or how they know you, or that they know who you actually are, it's probably a scam. Fear of missing out convinces you, well, what if this is a real person? What if this is actually someone I know? It could be. But if I ignore them, maybe they'll come back, hey, hey, it's actually so-and-so. Let them give you the information you need to know. Don't engage with them. As soon as you respond back, they know you're real. And they know that they have someone on the line that they can try and manipulate now. And it could be, hey, I'm your grandmother. Your niece is in Spain. She got mugged. I don't have enough money to send her money. Can you do it? Can you wire this money to her? Well, people fall for that a lot. Don't put your names of your kids on your vehicle. See the little family things with Bob, Sue, the dog's name. How many of you have your dog's name as your password? How many of you have your kids' names as your password? How many of you are going to get a text saying, hey, little Sue, she fell down and or whatever, she's in Spain and she got mugged and needs money. Now they have a piece of information they can use to target you. Don't give people that information. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this wasn't too tangent-y. Hopefully you'll be better advocates for yourself and share this information online. But if you do get convinced otherwise and you find out you've been scammed, know that you're in good company. It happens to a lot of people out there, and it's professionals doing it. It's not just some random kid in someone's basement. These are companies, these are people who are employed to do this, and they're very good at it. So don't feel too bad if you've been scammed. Just learn your lesson, be more careful next time. We have upcoming drills coming up, in-person drills. Saturday, April 29th in the West Adams area is our incident response team drill. There's the website, or you can go to training.ntp-la.org for all the list of our upcoming trainings. In May in Studio City is our May drill. And if you have any question, if you haven't yet, please sign up for our newsletter, certvolunteer.org. It's going to show us the neighborhood team program. That's the email list, so you can find out about these presentations, these upcoming drills that we put out. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at patrick@disasterprop.org. All right, so I haven't had a chance to look at the chat. However, if you do have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and I can unmute you or allow you to unmute yourself and let you ask your question. So, any questions? Phyllis, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
So one of the more interesting recent text scams is somebody texts to say your doctor's appointment is at such and such a time. And if you respond saying this is the wrong number, you've allowed yourself into the start of another scam.
That's very good. I didn't even, that I could see that. Don't reply. If it's not applies to you, you don't know who this is, do not reply, because all you're doing is verifying your information. Now they're going to sell it to someone else, or they're going to actually know that they have a target, and now they're going to invest a little bit of time and energy into you. So that's a great one. Thanks, Phyllis. John, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been looking for information, resources about the topic that you're going over, and specifically, I'm subscribed to lots of podcasts and information about corporate cybersecurity, cryptography, stuff like that, but just general security and being aware and being skeptical for the citizen I had a little more hard time finding resources for things like that. So if you have any hints, I'd appreciate it.
I don't. Maybe there's some other IT professionals on here that have some good suggestions, but a lot of this is the experience I've learned. I should find some resources to share with people. Unfortunately, I don't have any off the top of my head. John, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Or is that John? Sorry, trying to read through the chat as well. Sullivan.
Ebonique.
Sullivan, yeah. Was it Ebonita?
Ebonique.
Ebonite.
So my question was I guess when you're trying to start protecting yourself, are the VPNs and the antiviruses, are they sufficient? Because you always get these invites on in your emails and stuff to subscribe to something, and they generally will cost you about $100 a year, and then you're just stacking program on top of program to protect yourself, and then you're wondering, am I even doing enough?
So that's where you have to question the source. Why are these people emailing me? Well, they're probably trying to sell me something. Is this legit? Is this something that's actually usable? I would not click on any links that you've been emailed because you don't know where those are going to go. Generally, if it's $100, they're trying to convince you that you're paying and you're getting your money's worth. You shouldn't be paying $100 for an antivirus. Generally, there are subscriptions. They're probably going to be about $50 a year. That price goes up and down with sales and stuff. What you need to do is search best antivirus, or AV comparatives is a good one. It's more for the the professional, because they actually run reports and they do testing, and that information changes quite frequently. But you know, news websites will do stories on antivirus. CNET.com is a good one until they run out of business. I don't know how long they're going to be around for. Do your search. You go out and search. And again, I don't like telling people to go Google it because they're not, but you need to learn, do a quick search on the internet and actually see what people are saying out there. There's a lot of resources out there. Read multiple sources. One thing I didn't mention is if all the sources say exactly the same thing, it's probably a scam. And there's been sites out there that sell a product and they will actually create multiple websites and have fake reviews. Well, if you look at the reviews and they all sound very similar in content, and they say nothing bad about the product, it's probably not legit. But that's just another scam out there. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a better answer. Just if somebody advertises to you, don't trust it. That's the best advice I can give. Sally.
I'm just wondering, how in the world can we get this presentation on a podcast, news networks, places, that will get to thousands and millions of people? This was excellent. And I really think that this type of presentation does need to be out there. Have you ever thought about doing podcasts or know somebody that could, maybe get this to more people than you even are today?
This is on our YouTube channel at Shareable. We'll get it edited and cleaned up a little bit, so it's not the full 2 hours, but I'm not good at selling myself.
It was an excellent presentation and really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Glad you found it valuable. Joy.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you. In your one of your slides, you mentioned travel and someone else. I didn't hear the whole sentence. It was in your slide, identity matters. Could you state that again, please, to clarify it?
I was saying that you might not think that you have your identity is valuable enough to steal. But what people would do is they just need someone else, and they need someone else to, put the name of the tickets under. They need someone else to apply for the loan or the mortgage. And you might think that you don't have a great chance of getting it, but they're still going to ruin your credit for doing it by doing it. And they don't care. So your identity, even if you don't think it's valuable, is valuable, and you need to safeguard it.
Oh, thank you. But when you travel, you need to give the airline their information, yes?
Yes. But what I'm saying is that a criminal needs to give someone's information, and they might use yours and that's why they're stealing it. They're stealing it to impersonate you so they can commit crimes.
Okay, thank you so much. And it was a wonderful, important presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you so much. For those of you who are wondering, I'm the stupid, intelligent person that got
they got scammed, and I asked Patrick to do this presentation so other people wouldn't get scammed. I didn't get so far as to them getting my money, but they got too much information out of me, and I could kick myself for it. But I learned a lesson, and I learned a lot from just what you presented here tonight, Patrick. I just want to share something that I had to do as a result of getting falling for a scam and getting my computer information, making it vulnerable. I had to do a system restore to uninstall software, anything that I hadn't put on there already. And I had to update my BIOS on my computer, on my laptop. I changed all my financial passwords, Amazon, the bank, PayPal. I changed my email, all my email passwords. I created a new email account that was different from the one that they had access to. And I changed my cell phone number so they can't verify stuff on the old phone number. Because like Patrick said, even if you have a two-factor verification, if they know your phone number, they could still impersonate you and verify something that they made that you didn't make. So it's so important to be vigilant and to not let yourself fall prey to all. There's so many scams out there. It makes me mad. And usually I am pretty vigilant, but this particular one I fell for. I stopped short of giving them money, but I had already given them too much information, and I could kick myself for it. But anyway, thank you, Patrick, for this presentation. I'm glad that I asked you to do it because other people need to hear that too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, all it takes is one mistake. You click the wrong
Yeah.
link, and suddenly you got this alert, very convincing alert, saying that your computer's been hijacked and you need to call this number, and you're panicking. It's designed, it's that manipulation I talk about. It's designed to convince you that you need to do this right now, urgently, and you don't think about it. You just do it, and it leads down. And it's a good thing you caught it when you did, but again, it was very convincing. It was designed to be that way. All right, Marina.
I have 3 questions. One, should we activate our VPN at home on computers and phone in addition to when you're in public Wi-Fi?
Secure always, encrypt always. And yes, I think that you never know what the attack vector is going to be. The more protection you have, the better. It's not a guarantee. And somebody asked about Apple computers, and Apple computers are just as vulnerable as Windows and Android are. Just because there's not a lot of published vulnerabilities doesn't mean that they don't happen. Apple's very good at quietly patching security flaws, but there's been some big ones out there for Apple computers. And Apple, a lot of times antivirus on Apple computers scan for Windows viruses. So there's not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to, by installing antivirus software using a VPN, that you're going to be able to stop the attack. And a lot of times there's a delay. So you visit a website and you go, oh, this website seems fishy, and you close the tab and then you go on, and then half an hour later or the next day, something pops up. So yes, in terms of the more security, the better, but don't be paranoid about it. Don't think I need to go and get all the security stuff because I'm going to get tricked or breached or something. Just do what you can. Be careful about what you're doing on the internet, and don't, click on links. That's the biggest thing. Or ads. If you go to a website, maybe an ad blocker is probably one of the best things you could do, because there's been some pretty monumental payloads delivered by, and payload is something that gets onto your computer and then runs. That happens because of an ad. You go to a website, got an ad. The website's not malicious. The website's hiring a company to do advertising for them so they can make a little bit of money by just you visiting. But that exploit happens on the back end, and now a payload's being delivered to your computer, and you visited, you know, NPR or CNET or CNN or Fox News. You visited a legitimate website. Again, not political. You visited a legitimate website, and because of the advertising system they used, that's how you got hit by the payload. Now, typically, they're not malicious on their own. What Carolyn should have done when she saw that pop up is just restarted her computer. If it came back after the restart, now you've got a problem. But restart your computer first, pull the plug, wait for everything to cool off, power it back on, and hopefully it's fine. Do some research, best antivirus, best VPN. The only thing that VPN is really going to protect you is from someone snooping your information. But it happens, especially if you're at a cafe. I never connect to the Wi-Fi that I don't own or trust. If I have a hotspot on my phone, I do that, and then I use a VPN because someone can see that hotspot. They can see my data traveling over the Wi-Fi, and they can potentially hijack that and either break in or gain information from me. So that VPN is going to protect my computer to wherever I'm going. But that's a little more advanced than most people need to do. Just be careful about where you're connecting to. Another big one is don't plug in your phone into a public charger, because your phone has a data connection as well as a charging port. It's the same thing. And if you plug into a malicious charger, it can actually deliver a payload to your phone, because your phone shows up and says, oh, there's a USB connection. Should I connect to it? And you're like, yeah, or always connect. And now they have access to your phone, and they can do some pretty nasty stuff to it. So just be careful about what you're doing.
Could
Sorry,
you
what?
clarify that? Like, were you saying, like, if you're sitting in an airport, you know how they have plugs, AC, or,
Mhm.
USB ports at the chair
Yeah.
that you're sitting on?
Uh-huh.
Somebody could have put something malicious on
Yep.
that?
And someone could put a credit card scanner or scraper into a gas pump, or hijack Target's entire credit card system. You don't control it, you don't trust it. That should be your rule of thumb.
So does that mean you should carry a portable charger with you?
I do. Carry a battery
Okay.
bank. Or they have these things called USB condoms. And what it does is it separates the data connection from your power. And so now you plug into the USB condom and plug into that unknown unknown cell phone charger, and they don't have data access to your phone.
USB condom, I love it. Do you recommend using a password security software like Dashlane?
I haven't heard of that one. But things like LastPass, while it sounds like a great idea, is probably one of the most risky or most attacked sites out there, because they have everyone's password. And so it's a risk. And it's also mitigation. So this site is going to protect you, give you better passwords. It's going to manage your passwords. You have different passwords for each site, but it's storing all your passwords. And so if somebody breaks into it, they have everyone's password. That concerns me. But it also is a better way to do passwords. So, and you can't, passwords are horrible. Passwords need to die in a fire.
I mean, if you have like 100 sites you have passwords for, where do you store them? If you don't store them in a place like Dashlane or whatever it is.
I use a password management system. I just maybe don't use the most popular one out there. But it's a mitigation and it's a risk, and you have to assess it.
Okay, thank you
All right. Sorry, I can't give you a good answer on that one.
Thank you so much.
Becky.
Hi, thank you for calling on me. And thank you for your information. I was going to ask about the USB condom and whether those were legit or not. I noticed that I got in the mail today something that just fits everything you said. It says, "Dear shareholder, we've been trying to contact you, blah, blah, blah. Very important we speak to you regarding this matter to avoid any interruptions in the management of your fund." I've never heard of them, and I'm asking myself why I didn't get this information from my broker or from my other people who handle my accounts. And so this just looks fishy. So I'm going to be spending probably 2 hours on the phone tomorrow morning calling up brokers to ask them, go to the source that I trust to ask them if it's legitimate before I even attempt to call these crazy things. I mean, it sounds like they don't even know who I am. They just got a name.
They don't. If it says "Dear shareholder," if you were actually a shareholder, they'd know who you are.
Well, they got my name, but
Oh, okay.
they've got my name and my address and the fact that I am a shareholder. But
Yeah, call your broker and
Yeah.
talk to them, and they should be able to tell you if it's legit or not. But don't call the number on that
no,
that you got.
but I have found that because I'm bombarded with this constantly, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and they always turn out to be bogus, but it is a tax on my time. And just to do my due diligence now, to just wade through all these scams. Somewhere somebody got my name.
Yep. 8 billion people in the world, and 10% of them don't belong. That's a lot of potential problem people out there.
I wasn't sure what to expect from this, but and it really isn't really as germane to CERT unless you think that we are here all looking out for each other and that we all join CERT to take care of our homes and our families. And in a larger sense, we are a community of people who do care and want to care about each other. And I so appreciate what you did. And thank you for giving us your expertise.
Thank you.
I used to teach at above the postgraduate level. And I ran into so many people that were incapable of critical thinking. And one of the things I did that I was so surprised I did was I had to demand that nobody got by me unless they could demonstrate critical thinking. And it's a sad thing in our culture that we are at that point where we still are saying, well, this sounds really vague. Why do you believe that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mira.
Yeah, hi. Okay, a couple of things. Yeah, I went to John Jay College, Criminal Justice School in New York. So I did take some computer classes. This was some years ago. So some of the stuff I'm familiar with, but I even got ripped off online, you know, and I made friends with somebody and gave them money and stuff, and I should have. Or maybe I don't know. I don't know the whole story with this thing. But can things like Bitcoin and stuff? Because then I hired somebody or tried to hire somebody and they claimed that they could get this. It was like Bitcoin and this kind of stuff back. Can that be retrieved? That's my first question. My other question is it really safe to use credit cards? Because I bought something online once. There was this, and the company was unscrupulous, and all of a sudden I'm being charged with stuff. But are credit cards safe, or are they safe like you go to the supermarket or you go to different places? Because I started because I know one time I was in a gas station and then I had to close the card because of that. And I just started using more, cash because I was getting paranoid. Or I have one of those little, those things that you put on a credit card so somebody can't steal the information, like if you're waiting in line or something.
Yeah. So,
But-
Bitcoin, if it's gone, it's gone. It's just like cash. If it's stolen from you, it's gone. Don't
But do they know where, can they find out where it's being sent to?
No, it's I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't count on it. In terms of credit cards. So in terms of credit cards, however, credit card companies have anti-fraud policies. So if you declare something as fraud, they'll do some research on it and they'll probably credit it back to you. It is, in my opinion, safer to use a credit card than it is a debit card, because a debit card does not have such strong protections and it takes money directly out of your checking account.
Yeah, I don't use the debit card at all.
But if the bank is watching the credit cards and if they see something suspicious, they'll quickly mark it as fraud. And sometimes you'll charge a couple things that you're out of the ordinary, and they have an algorithm that detects that and says, this is strange. And then you'll get declined and you'll get a text message from your bank, or you have to call your bank to find out what's going on. They'll say, did you do this, this, and this? Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, then go ahead and run the card again. But if you say no, they'll cancel the card, send you a new one at no charge to you, and invalidate any fraudulent charges.
But is it common that, like, when you actually use the credit card at a vendor or something, that it also, the information could be stolen or that kind of, is that common, or is that happens? I know it happened once at a gas station, I think, but other than that.
I've had my card ripped a couple times, a few times, and had weird things happen. And, that's why I use a credit card, because if my credit card gets compromised, they'll refund the money and I don't have to pay for it. It didn't come out of my checking account. So that's the safest. I prefer doing that than cash. Because if somebody mugs me and I've got, $500 in cash on me, I'm not getting that money back.
Yeah, you're not getting it back, right? Okay, so there is no way to trace where Bitcoin was sent.
I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't count on it.
Okay, got it. Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, live and learn, right? Stuff is expensive, sometimes lessons that never.
Thanks, Mira. Amatia?
I just go by Taya. It's fine. Thanks. A couple, if I can address a couple of those things that were just mentioned. First off, as far as using cash and all that, something I've learned from a couple of the people and myself experience, have a couple of different checking accounts and savings accounts, so then kind of use them different places. Someone I know, they got all of their cash swiped because they had one account, and so I've learned that if you just use one for like your main stuff, but you keep most of it in other places, then it protects it and diversifies it, so you keep your funds secure. As far as credit cards, I have a credit card that they have this really fantastic feature. It's called a virtual card number. It's not just using like Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or anything like that, but this credit card, they actually will produce a different virtual credit card number. It's kind of like a fake credit card number, but it's real. And you can use them for
temporary credit card number.
You can use them for the same vendor over and over again online. And it's fantastic because last year someone compromised one of those numbers and I simply shut it off and my real credit card number was protected. So that was fantastic. But the real reason I wanted to raise my hand is because you had mentioned something earlier of vulnerability by design. And CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, literally last week announced a new initiative called Secure by Design and Secure by Default. And the thought process is that cybersecurity and how we have trained ourselves in the United States is not really working. It hasn't worked for a long time. And so what this push, if I understand it correctly, is to work with the manufacturers and people who are designing the technology and the infrastructure and the software and all that to have security features built in from the very beginning. So I don't know how long it's going to take to implement it, but hopefully we'll start to see some positive changes in that particular field for personal safety and security.
It doesn't need to move in that direction, but your greatest vulnerability is going to be the people, still, always. And attacks are more commonly going to be social engineering than technical attacks. But there will always be glitches and bugs and things that didn't work the way they were expecting to, and all about, exploiting a weakness is I can shove data in something and it's not rejecting it. Let me shove a lot of data into it and see what happens. I watched what happened and went, oh, that was interesting. Well, let me do this and then this and see where I can get with this. So it's, if you can exploit one program, then you can get access to something else and then exploit it there. But it's the problem when you let them on your computer. Walter, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, it's not so much of a question, but something I want to share that it's really useful. It's been very useful for work. Is adding a security key to your information, especially for emails and things like that. Security keys are pieces that you carry. It's a little the different brands in there that.
Yeah.
And what they do, they add an extra verification to your email account, and it's really hard to more difficult to crack than you think, because the information doesn't lie anywhere else except for your key and your email, and they're the ones who have the information. So I don't know, it's really inexpensive. I usually try to get a backup key just in case if you lose one, but it's just
That's
something that is very reliable for.
That's the multi-form factor authentication I mentioned. And
Yeah,
that is a good thing. I don't know all the details, especially, there's a lot of different vendors out there.
Yeah.
It's more complicated to do that and implement it. But it's not a bad thing. Yeah, certainly. Anything that you can do that's going to require a second device or piece of information will slow, if not stop, most casual attacks.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to share with you guys. That it's really reliable for us.
Thank you. Carolyn.
Thank you. Yes, I'm back. I have a couple of questions. One is about the software that gives individual password. They make up a separate password each time you access the site. Do you know what that is?
You're talking about a verification code? So like an authenticator?
No. It's like a password manager that issues a different password each time.
Yes, password manager. As I mentioned, those are both a mitigation and a risk. So you're mitigating the problem of bad passwords and sharing passwords and just not being able to manage passwords for 100 sites. And the risk is that these sites now become targets. So if they can breach somebody who's password managing for 1 million customers, they've got 1 million people's passwords.
Oh, okay.
You're trusting them that they're not going to get breached.
It's a two-edged sword, huh?
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Okay. The other thing was the virtual credit card. I never heard of that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So Bank of America used to have it and they discontinued it. I really miss it. But it's you log into your website, into your bank's website, and or whoever the credit card issuer is, and you can generate a virtual credit card that it's a full actual credit card with number and expiration date. And you can put in how long you want it to be good for. So you could say 1 month if you're only going to do one charge, or 2 years if you're going to be using this recurringly. And then you can use this and you can generate any number of these. So every time you buy something online or you sign up for a website, you can give it its own unique credit card. So if that site gets compromised and shares your data, only that one virtual credit card gets compromised, and then you can cancel it, and you don't have to cancel everything, because we all probably have a bunch of recurring charges on our credit cards. So when your credit card gets breached and canceled and reissued, now you have to go to all the websites that has that credit card.
Right, exactly. So what bank has those kind of
Carolyn, you accidentally muted yourself. You're asking who's got it. I think Mary.
Yeah, I was asking who does issue those kind of cards? You can't hear
Mary,
me?
was that you who mentioned this?
No, I'm Mary.
Oh, okay. Hoover, I don't know who still does it.
Mira, I think Mira said it.
No, it wasn't me, somebody else.
Okay, I don't know who said it then.
I
Okay,
just Googled it. It says Citibank, Bank of America, and Capital One are the only 3 banks that offer them now.
okay, I'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think B of A does
another,
it.
who, say again?
I don't think Bank of America does it anymore, at least not with mine.
Okay, okay. And I have a suggestion for a browser that filters out with advertising things by default. It's called Brave, Brave. And they don't, unless you allow it, they don't allow any advertising on it. Unless you allow it, by default, there's no advertising.
Yeah, that's good. And there's extensions you can get for other browsers like Firefox. You can get no script that will stop all things from running, but it does make things difficult. And some websites will actually detect that you're blocking the ads, and they'll stop you from browsing. So
yeah, but this one doesn't have an ad blocker, as an extension. It just doesn't allow ads.
Yeah. Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, right. I want to, what about Zelle in these newer forms? They're on your, like Bank America has it and Chase Bank, and you can make your payments through Zelle or PayPal. Are they safer or?
It depends. If you're sending money to a scammer, say goodbye to that money. That's generally your policy. Doesn't matter what you're using. If you get tricked into sending somebody money, cash, your Zelle, PayPal, the chances of you getting that money back are greatly reduced.
And I wondered about Google, if you're in the cloud, how safe are we with having everything up there?
And breaches happen all the time. So that's what I'm saying is try not to share. Don't share as much information as you can. Share as little as you can. Just be careful and be vigilant. If something seems too good to be true or seems suspicious, it probably is.
Well, Google asks for so many questions, and they have, like, if you want to say go on their new, say on Google Drive or something, they're asking you to make sure that you're, let's say, a lot of information. Like if you have a Google, let's say an email with them, they want you to even verify you're the person on an email when you're trying to buy other products. And it becomes, one of mine got deleted temporarily because they said it wasn't me. And for 1 week, they have me, I can't get an email. So I don't know with all their security, whether it's working for us or not,
Yeah, it's dangerous out there and it changes week to week. So I can't give you any specifics on that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful today.
Thank you. Maria.
So ad blockers, you mentioned that earlier. There are extensions you can put on your browser. Is that
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Does Google offer them, or you just have to find
You
one?
search the Chrome store for ad blocker.
Okay.
Use.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month. I don't know what the topic's going to be, but we'll send it out to the email list. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.